Welcome to our webinar, Pinterest for Business, Growing Traffic Leads and Sales with Pinterest. I encourage you to get your free trial of Tailwind now. That will get you 100 free pins. And at the end of our webinar, we're going to have a special offer for those of you who would like to upgrade to a Plus plan. It's an offer that we don't usually offer, so we encourage you to stick around for that. But in the meantime, let's get inspired. We have Kath. She's a content creator who quit her full-time marketing job in order to concentrate on content creation. And she was able to grow her monthly Pinterest viewers from 7,000 a month to 100,000 a month in just a couple months. And what that meant for her was an increase month over month of 191% for her blog traffic. Huge difference. Elna is a millennial mom. She works at home, and she was able to get 4.8 thousand Pinterest followers in just a couple of months without really trying too hard. And what that translated to for Elna would be course sales. So real money there, and also with increased affiliate income. Natalie is a registered nurse, a mom, and she runs Love and Paper Flowers. What she was able to do is get to 60,000 views on Pinterest, and that translated to her email list growing like crazy. So the next story we need is your story. What's it going to be? So let's get into this. I am Alisa Meredith. I am the Content Marketing Manager at Tailwind. You may have seen me at Social Media Marketing World. I've been on quite a few podcasts, usually talking about Pinterest, sometimes Pinterest ads. And you can reach me on Twitter at Alisa M. Meredith or email alisa@tailwindapp.com if you have any questions about this presentation or about Tailwind. What we're going to talk about today, a whole bunch of things, basically everything you need to know to succeed on Pinterest. So let's get into it. Why Pinterest? You probably have some idea, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So I want to ask in the chat, how many of you are using Pinterest? Now it's funny, Social Media Examiner does a survey of marketers every year, and they find that year over year, fewer and fewer marketers seem to be using Pinterest. Why is that? Well, it's probably because they don't understand it. Certainly not because it doesn't deliver results, as we've already seen, as you may have already experienced as well. So if you're not using Pinterest now, but you're here, we might ask why. Could it be that Facebook restricting reach of our business posts is causing people to look for other solutions? Pinterest is great for driving traffic. So you've come to the right place. The thing that's really important that is hard to get across is that Pinterest is not a social network. So if you're trying to take what works on Facebook, what works on Twitter, and make it work on Pinterest, it's not going to work. So you're going to feel like Pinterest doesn't work. That's not it. You just need to think of it a little differently. It's a solitary destination where people go to plan their lives, plan purchases, events, to become the best version of themselves, not a place to go and curate an image of the best person they want to be. It's a search and discovery network. So I heard a really good illustration of someone who works at Pinterest giving a webinar saying, I don't go to Pinterest because I want to buy Nike sneakers. I go because I don't know how to dress myself. But that was funny. So true. A completely different mindset from social, a completely different mindset from Google. But if you can capture that, you will succeed on Pinterest. One of the best ways to do that is to use Pinterest yourself as a regular pinner and start to figure out why you're pinning certain things or what makes something attractive to you. So there are 2 billion searches happening on Pinterest every month, and search is responsible for more impressions than anything else that's going on, whether that might be people looking at other people's profiles or boards. It doesn't happen a whole lot. Mostly it's happening in search, so we really need to focus on that, and we will. So pinners are planning. 93% of pinners are using Pinterest to plan purchases, which is great news for us. And 97% of those searches are unbranded. So as we just talked about, people aren't necessarily going on there to search for Nike sneakers. They might be looking for an outfit to wear to a summer graduation party, right? So you can see they're a little open-minded. You can reach them much higher up in that decision-making process, which is great news for those of us without existing brand recognition. And who doesn't need more new customers? probably all of us could use some. So 72% of pinners are saying that they have discovered a new service or brand on Pinterest. That is wonderful. We want some of those to find you as well. And moms, of course, make so many purchasing decisions in the home. So knowing that 70% of US moms are on Pinterest is excellent. 1 in 3 dads in the US are also on Pinterest. And they are pinning no matter where they are. 80% of pinners are using the mobile app, and 67% say that when they're in a store, they pick up their app and look at it when they're considering a purchase. 40% of the new users coming onto Pinterest are men. About half are outside of the United States, so the audience is growing and growing. And a pin is going to last forever. So today's pin can drive traffic and sales to your website for months and years to come. So what you're doing today, even if it doesn't feel like it's paying off in the moment, is an investment in the future. So when you tweet, that's gone in just a couple of seconds. When you pin, the half-life of a pin, so the first half of the engagement that happens on it is about 3.5 months. So if you consider that, and then we have some outliers, of course, right, which will keep surfacing after months and months and months and years. When people see your pins and go to your website, they are 10% more likely to buy than if they found you through another source, which translates into real money because you can get some real traffic. And speaking of which, the average sale from a Pinterest referral visit is $50, which is higher than most of the other networks. So what is popular on Pinterest? You probably would guess all of these, right? Food and drink, travel, home, kids and parenting, women's style, men's style, beauty, health and wellness, celebrations, hobbies and interests. But before you leave thinking, I'm not on there, please know that with a little bit of creativity, pretty much any business can succeed on Pinterest. For example, if you look on Pinterest business website on their success stories, you'll see quite a few of those are from finance companies. They have found a way to be creative in presenting their information in a way that is useful and inspiring, and people are reacting to that well. So you just have to be a little creative if you're outside of these major interests. So of course we need to build and execute a strategy like we do for all marketing, but the first thing to know is to be patient. So unlike when you started on Facebook or Instagram and you started getting those followers and those likes and comments right away, it can take months for your Pinterest to really feel like it's picking up steam. And that's okay because it keeps going and going. It has a kind of a snowball effect, but it's definitely a long-term investment. So if you keep publishing consistently over months and months, it's going to work. So first things first, and could definitely do this later. Please, you want to grab our worksheet here at bit.ly/get started pinning. We'll have all of these items in it. So you're going to need to have a business account. You'll want to claim your website and apply for rich pins. And we'll talk about why for some of these later. You also want to set up your website because we can get traffic to your website, but we also want to have the website working for us on Pinterest too. So you can add the Pinterest share button easily with all these links here. You can add this sharing plugin like Social Warfare so that you can have a nice tall image on your blog post that you don't even have to show, because most of us want that narrow image at the top, right? That will make that easy for you. Oops, sorry. Make it easy for people to follow you by adding a widget to your site. And keep Pinterest and Google happy with a plugin like WP Tasty that will allow you to have your image alt text and also a special Pinterest description right on the image on your site. Very handy. Now, if you're already doing other marketing for your business, you probably know your customer pretty well, but basically you want to have that buyer persona. Know your customer inside and out. And again, there's a great template in that worksheet that will help you to really identify who they are, what she cares about, aside from just what you have directly to offer, why she might be looking for you, to help you get inside the mindset of the person you're talking to, she or he. The next thing that we need is a goal. So your goals for Pinterest, it's just like anything else. This is a HubSpot program here, a SMART goal: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely. So we might want something like, I want to grow my Pinterest referral traffic by 25% as measured by Google Analytics over the next 6 months. As opposed to, I want my pin to go viral. Not a great goal. Nothing you can measure, and you're going to need to measure so that you know it's worth continuing. So one of the first things we want to do is to create our Pinterest keyword lists. So you probably have a keyword list that you use in Google or for your content planning. Even if you don't, though, just think for a minute, what words would people use to find your product? So we're going to use the example of teacher resources for the moment, and we're going to go over to Pinterest and do a little digging around for some keywords. Okay. So let's go to the search bar and type in teacher resources. Okay, so right here we have autofill, much like Google does, which tells us that these are things people commonly search for in relation to our main keyword. So automatically, if these fit for you, these could become new keywords to use on Pinterest. Now, when you hit enter on one of these, it's going to pull up what's called guided search. And that's where they show these tiles of related terms that show you these are other words that people use in connection with this search on Pinterest. Incredible, the insights you can get here, the things you might not have thought of. So for any of these that fit for you, write them down, use them. You can keep going, clicking through here. Sometimes you'll get even more recommendations. Looks like we're at the end of that rabbit hole for that one. Another thing you can do once you have your business account is you can go into ads. I just went into traffic. We're going to create a fake campaign. Doesn't matter what kind of goal you choose. The options aren't going to matter except for we just need a name. Don't care about this right now. Don't care about any of this until we get down to add keywords. So we're going to enter in teacher resources. And here Pinterest is telling us how much interest there is in this topic on Pinterest. So I'm going to pick any of these that I think might fit. Some of these are interesting. Okay, you can see more and keep going. You can see kind of the relative search interest here. And then copy these, paste them to your list, and you are good to go. Okay, so now you have your keywords. How many keywords? It's going to probably depend. So if you, let's say for example, you're doing teacher resources, but you have underneath that maybe second grade science, and then you have underneath that third grade math. So for each of those, create a keyword list for yourself, 10 to 20 keywords perhaps, that you'll be able to use throughout Pinterest and your pins. Okay, so we also need to have a great profile. Now, it's not the case that people are always checking out profiles, but now that we have the follower tab, and I'll show you that in a minute, this is becoming a little bit more important because people are going to be more particular about who they follow, which is great. We want them to be. So Catherine here has done a great job using keywords in her username here and also in her bio, right? She has her website here, which she has claimed. This is a clickable website. It's the only one you get. It's the only do follow link you get from Pinterest. And if you want to check her out, that is her URL. But let us go back into Pinterest and look at how we would make some changes ourselves. So I'm going to go to my profile. This is how you get to yours. All right, so we have this cover photo, and for mine, I can see what it's showing. What it's showing is pins from this particular board. So you can change that by clicking on the little pencil. You can choose to have your latest pins. You can have pins people have saved from your website most recently, or you can pick one particular board. I've picked this board because it's my content. Recent activity from my website could also be a good choice, but I happen to know that people tend to repin the same things over and over again, and I don't want that cover photo to look too repetitive. So I'm done with that. Some of the things that you can change here, this activity tab, you can remove it from your profile. So if you don't want people to see what people are pinning from your website directly, you can remove it. You'll still be able to see it yourself, which is great because you want to know what is working for people now. Okay, so you can change that. You can also look at who's following you and follow them back if you want to. Click through to see their profile. You can also see who you're following and unfollow if you want to. You can look at boards and topics you're following as well, or you can just pull up pins that you have tried. So this is kind of cool. If you've added an image and comments on a pin, you can pull those up there. So I have claimed my website. I have my profile image, which is a pretty recognizable photo of me. I'm using my keywords here. I've used my description here to tell people what it is I'm known for, why you might be able to trust what I say. And I've definitely used my keywords there to help myself be found, but also so people know really what it is I'm about, what I'm pinning. So when you're creating your profile, that's something that you want to consider as well. And that's really all there is to it as far as the profiles go. Now we need to talk about your boards. So if you are already marketing on Pinterest, you probably have some boards of varying degrees of success. So the first place we're going to look is in our Tailwind board insights. So you will need to upgrade to see this part of what I'm going to show you. It's in Insights, Board Insights. And here I'm going to just look at my regular boards, but what it's showing me is activity on my boards, but also, and this is the part that you need to have the upgrade for, it will show you how successful they are. So I like to look at virality score, which is how many repins each pin on that board is getting. You can also use engagement score, which takes into account how many followers there are on that board. So it's up to you which you prioritize. For me, I prioritize virality for my own boards, engagement score on my group boards, because those tend to have a bigger audience, and I want to know like what percentage of engagement I'm getting, if that makes sense. So looking at this, and I just did a board cleanup not that long ago. But what you might do, because people always ask, what's a good virality score? That depends really on you. Every industry is going to be different. So if I were a food blogger and my best virality score was 11, I would probably be disappointed, but I'm not. So what I pin is not as popular on Pinterest. That's okay. I'm still getting traffic and engagement, but I need to adjust my expectations. So if I look at what my average might be, taking out a couple of outliers, and I look down here at some of these lower ones. Well, these are private, so that's okay. I might think about, is it worth spending time creating content for this and pinning it or not? Maybe not. It's not going to hurt you if you do, but it's just not, the engagement isn't that great, so those individual pins aren't going to do that well. So we really want to be focusing our attention up here. And why we're looking at this now when we're auditing our boards is that if we have a board that's doing well and pins are getting engagement there, or if we're in, say, a group board that's doing really well, our pins are getting engagement there, those we do not want to leave. Right? Makes sense. Okay, so next step would be to go into our Tailwind analytics just to make sure we're not getting rid of any boards that we really should be keeping. So I'm sorry, and that's in our Pinterest analytics. So we're going to go into analytics, and we'll just go into overview so you can see what you're getting now. Okay, more, we'll go to more. You can look at top pin impressions for your boards, but what is probably more useful is to look at clicks you're getting. All right, so boards with the most clicked pins are these. So I probably want to make sure that I do not delete or archive or set secret any of these boards. All right, and when I'm saying, don't set secret, this is the process that I use. So I would go through and I would write down every board title that I have and the board description, and then I'm going to go through it like we just did and decide whether to set it to secret or not. So that's your first step. So if you set to secret, you don't have to do anything else to it. But if you decide that it's useful, but it's not quite where it should be, we're gonna repurpose it. So let's see how we might do that. So our priority on Pinterest is going to be our own content. So you're going to have a board that holds all of your own content. I've had a chance to look at a lot of different Pinterest accounts, and almost without exception, the best performing board is the one that contains just that person or that business's own content. The reason for that is that it's very fresh content that is a unique asset. So there's probably not another board like it on Pinterest. Okay. So if you think about, okay, all your content goes there, but it's also going to go in other boards. So it's okay and good to pin to more than one board. So you might have a board that would have your own second grade math tips and other people's. We'll get into why you're going to pin other people's content in a minute, but for now, just realize that's going to be the purpose of your new boards. When I say new boards, this may be that you're repurposing some older boards that didn't have the right keywords in it, or maybe wasn't quite focused enough, but the content in there still kind of makes sense with the topic. Your board titles do matter. So when you pin your own content to a board, it grabs that meta information from the board. It grabs the title, the description, and it gives that pin some more context. That happens most strongly with the very first time a pin is pinned, and we'll get into that as well in our search section. So rather than having cute board titles, we're going to use our keywords that we came up with in our keyword research for all of our board titles. Board descriptions, we just mentioned briefly, are also very important. You use your keywords there. Don't get cute. You may have in the past done a search up here and then filtered it by board and noticed that some of the top results maybe didn't even have a board description. In the past, we've kind of wondered, how important are they? Well, they are important, not necessarily for getting your boards found, but for having the pins on those boards found. So do take the time, give your pin every possible advantage by making sure your descriptions for your boards are good. Board sections are a new thing that Pinterest came out with to help us, excuse me, to help us as owners of our Pinterest boards to be able to find what we need easily. So I have a couple of these. I have one for an upcoming trip that's trip board, and then each section is like each location we're going to. So my friend and I can pin to the sections. So when we know when we get there, oh, that's what we wanted to do. That's what we wanted to do. It's easy to find later on. They weren't specifically to help other people find your content because, as we said, most of the activity happens in search as opposed to browsing. However, they do now count for search. So what that means is if you have a big board for recipes, and then under that you have a section called ketogenic recipes, one called Atkins recipes, one called sugar-free recipes, that all plays into the SEO for the pins in that section. However, it's just as helpful for search to have a niche boards. So because you cannot schedule 2 board sections with schedulers at this time, it's probably better for you to have niche boards and just a few of them. So this kind of goes back to what our strategy is going to be beyond our own content. Or finding ways to put a spin on our content to reach what people are into. So you're going to find this if you go to analytics, people you reach, and interests. And you can change from your followers to all audiences. All audiences is all the people who are seeing your pins. So what else are they interested in? We're almost always interested in quotes, home decor, right? Because the people who want your marketing information or your teacher resources are people with lots of different interests. So where it makes sense for you to serve those other interests with your content as well, or by sharing other people's content, is worth considering. So for example, if I click through here on design, because I can see that's what my followers are into, I'll show you right on Pinterest. How about that? Okay, so go to analytics, people you reach, interests. We'll switch over to followers. This has been a little funny lately. So if I click on design, I'm going to get some more topics that Pinterest says my audience is into. So I can't really do much to help with furniture design or apparel design, but it might make sense for me to pin about graphic design or even logo design because I pin about marketing. So as you start to investigate, you'll see, okay, even if I'm not blogging about graphic design specifically, might it make sense for me to have a board for graphic design? That way people may find the pins in that board when they're searching. They might find that I pin it, realize that I'm a good resource for marketing information, look at the other marketing information that I'm sharing, and they may be one of my most engaged followers. They may start engaging with my own content. So it's up to you to decide how far you want to go with that. You don't want to go too far outside of what you do. I wouldn't consider doing fashion, for example, because the percentage of people who are interested in fashion, the chances of them also being interested in what I do, not great. Even if I did fashion for work, it's still kind of a stretch. So you'll have to think about how far you want to go with that yourself. So now that we know some of the other interests that our followers and our audience are into, we're going to think about what kind of boards we could create. So I might do a digital media design or easy graphic design ideas. This one here would really work well for me. As someone who blogs about Pinterest a lot, people need ideas on how to design easily. So that one probably makes sense for me. So you can also look at your analytics to help you figure out what other boards you should create. So if we go back into Pinterest, we're going to go to analytics and we're going to go to, hold on. Oh yeah. So you can also use your Pinterest analytics to help you figure out what other boards you should be creating. So I'm going to go to analytics website, and this is another thing that you only get once you claim your website with Pinterest, but it's very helpful. I'm going to look at clicks, and I'm going to look at boards with the most clicked pins. And everything in the website section has to do with content from your website, whether you pinned it or somebody else did. So what I'm looking for here are, what are the boards where my pins are ending up that they're also getting engagement? So most of these are not mine. Here's one, Instagram marketing from Tailwind. I should probably have an Instagram marketing board. Here's another, I do have Pinterest marketing, but I don't have one that's Pinterest tips for bloggers. So because my pin is doing well here, it makes me think I should probably consider branching out to this kind of angle on Pinterest for myself. So as you start to look at the boards where your pins are showing up, you might see interesting things like, well, a favorite probably isn't a great one, but work at home. That's not an angle I had considered, but it might be something that would help me reach people who are interested in me. I've seen things like real estate marketing. So that might be a good thing for me to branch out into. The other thing you can do is to look at your competition. You know, and you're just going to keep creating these boards where you find the content to find out what they're pinning. So back to being a teacher with our teacher resources, a really big pinner is Teachers Pay Teachers. So look at what they have for their featured boards here. Anchor charts. If that makes sense for you, could you have a board called Anchor Charts? What they have there in their showcase is indicative of what is working for them or what they want to focus on. So you can do that too. Then if you go back into Pinterest and you look at analytics, people you reach, interests, you are going to see things like brands that your business engages with. Almost always you're going to see BuzzFeed and Etsy and Tumblr because that's what we like on Pinterest. But you're also going to see other competitors like Teachers Pay Teachers, We Are Teachers. Go in and see what they're doing and see what might be a good idea for you. Often people have questions about group boards and whether they are worth using. Of course, you've looked at your board insights and you've decided which ones to stay in and which ones to leave. But if you want some new ones, they can work well to get your content in front of a new audience. So when you pin to a group board, People who follow that group board can see your pin. They don't have to be following you specifically. Okay, so what I look for when I come here, and this is Pin Groupie, is to see how many collaborators there are. The more there are, the harder it is to ensure quality. So I go for kind of a mid-range number of collaborators, and then I'll actually go and check out that description, that board itself. You can filter to by these options. Another way to do it is to go back and look at your competition again and see which group boards they're on. You'll be able to tell which ones are group boards because in the corner of the board, there's a circle. And if it's just one person, it's a single person board. If there are more than one persons in there, it is a group board. So click on that. The person to the far left of the list of board members is the owner, and you can contact them and ask to join. Again, you're going to be looking at your board insights to see if it's worth it. Once you have all that done, it really becomes pretty self-explanatory what you should pin to your board. So it's going to depend on the title. It's going to depend on the description. You're going to save to the most relevant board first. We'll get to that in a minute. How many pins per day? Well, according to Pinterest, there's no such thing as too many. Just be consistent. So they would rather see you pin 5 pins a day than to pin 70 pins all at once. And one of the things that will help you with that is Tailwind. Now, so the other thing is, why should I pin other people's content? And then that expands to, well, what about the 80-20 rule where you pin 80% of your own content and 20 of others, or the other way around, 80% of other people's content and 20% of your own? That rule is arbitrary. It means nothing. If you create so much content that you don't need to pin anybody else's content, don't. Just be consistent. But for most of us, for most mortals who have lots of other things going on, we are going to need to fill in our schedule with other people's content. So that keeps us active and consistent on Pinterest, which is what they are looking for. Does it matter when I pin? It does matter when you pin. And the reason why is that Pinterest is showing your content to your followers first. So you have to pin when they are active. And here's what that looks like in Tailwind. Over here to Publisher and Your Schedule. This is my smart schedule. And the reason it's smart is because Tailwind looks at what my content is, who my followers are, and what they're engaged with. And I can add new time slots based on their suggestions. And you can even see there, your pins often receive high engagement at that time. So if I want to add those slots in, I can do it. Now, it would take you much too much time to analyze when your pins do well. There's just too much else going on. So I just let Tailwind do it for me. Have you heard about the first 5 rule? With Pinterest updated best practices and with a Facebook Live I did with the head of product marketing, they have now told us that the first 5 pins you pin in a day are given priority in distribution. What that means is, in theory, your first 5 pins after midnight UTC, which translates to me as 8 p.m. I'm in Eastern time zone on daylight saving time. It's going to be different for everybody. So ultimately, if I really wanted to test this out, what I would do is I would pin my own content to my own blog starting at 8 o'clock. However, you also need to consider your followers. So what you really, really want is for your pins to show up in the feed when your followers are active. So please don't worry too much about this midnight UTC first 5 rule. Think about instead when your followers are active, because their engagement on your pins means more distribution for your pins. Continue with the thought of timing. When should I start pinning things? So if you have something related to a holiday, you're going to be pinning a lot earlier than you would be, say, sharing on Facebook or Instagram, because people do like to plan ahead on Pinterest. Now, this question about third-party programs hurting your reach on Pinterest, I think comes up because people, for one, have heard Pinterest trainers saying you need to pin manually. You need to pin live. And also because there's always been that concern with Facebook that using a scheduler hurts your reach somehow. However, Pinterest has told us directly, and you can go back and watch the Facebook Live on the Tailwind Facebook page, that there is absolutely no need to pin manually or live. So pinning using a third-party scheduler counts. It's the same thing. There's no advantage to pinning live, ever. You don't have to do it at all. I pressed her on that one because I think a lot of us felt like Pinterest knows if you use the platform natively and they like that. They don't care. They do care that you come back every once in a while and pin for yourself. The reason for that is you want to know what new features there are, and you also don't want to lose touch with pinners. It's going to help you to be a better marketer on Pinterest. But don't feel like you have to pin. But don't feel like you have to pin manually or live. So this all sounds like a lot of work, right? It's not, though. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you why. All right, so obviously it all comes back to Tailwind. And for example, if we go to the Tailwind blog and we want to pin something, we go to any blog, you see some content you like, you could use their Social Warfare or other share plugin, and then the Tailwind button shows up there. You can schedule it. You can also use the extension and choose any image on there. Go schedule it. It's running a little slow with all the applications I have running, but then you can type in the board names you want. Okay, I want this one. Oh, I also want the other Instagram one. But I might also want my social media boards. But I don't want them all to go up at the same time. I want to use my interval, so I can set my interval for about 3 days apart. They're going to fit into your smart schedule, so it'll put them in approximately that far apart. And if I hit schedule now, look, I've already scheduled to this one. It's smart. It knows. So I'll take that one out. If I schedule now, I just scheduled 3 pins very, very quickly. Okay, so what I did is I used something called board lists. So for my content, I found that it was often going into a certain, always the same kind of board, right? So if I had, okay, for my post, I always want to make sure that got into marketing articles I've written, Pinterest marketing for business. Then I also have this Pinterest list with all my Pinterest boards, including my group boards. So this makes it really fast to schedule your pin out to all the relevant boards all at once. And then that interval pinning we saw makes it so that you can spread things out in a way that makes sense. Something that is relatively new to Tailwind is called Tailwind Tribes. This is a great way to get your content in front of other people who want to share it. But my favorite use for it is to save time in curating really great content, because I don't have time to blog as much as I would like to. I need to share other people's great content. So looking at this tribe here, I can see that I've only put in, 13 pieces of content. I haven't been that active on that end. But I've gotten 144 reshares. So people from the tribe are reacting to my content, sharing it out. Gotten 100 repins on those, and a possible reach of 6.2 million that I couldn't have gotten on my own. I got that from other people sharing my content. Lovely. But like I said, my favorite thing is how much time it saves me. So let's see. I'm going to do some of this. I'm going to just pick some boards. I can edit the description if I want to. I could add in a hashtag. I'm going to add it to my queue. Your board lists also work here. So if I wanted to share this, if I wanted to share this with all of my Pinterest boards, I could do that. Set my interval, schedule, and go. It's really easy to hide pins you've already scheduled, so you don't have to go through them again. If there's something you don't want to see, if you're like, oh, that doesn't really fit me or my brand, I'm going to hide it. Another thing I have loved about this is as I get requests for people to join my tribe, I'm meeting new bloggers, people that I never knew about before. And what you can do with that is start to collaborate on content, on other ideas. You can also invite people to another tribe. So if you start out in somebody else's tribe and you start your own and you feel like, oh, I know some good tribe mates from my other tribes I want to invite in. This one here, she'd be great. Look, she shared in 167 pieces of content. I can just look at her content and see, oh yeah, this would be great, really great for my tribe. See, I'm getting distracted so I can schedule stuff here. Fast, 3 pins just scheduled. So I could chat with her, or I could just invite her to another tribe. So let's see. I can invite her to my all Pinterest. Anything I'm an owner of or an admin of, I can invite them to my tribe and make her a tribe admin if I want to give her permission to do things like add new members or delete content. Okay, so much you can do in tribes that's not just about yourself and your own content, but also about saving a lot of time. I also love to be able to come in and see like who is sharing my content and how far did it go. So, well, Tailwind shared my content, but also this one did too, and what boards it's ending up on. So it just saves so much time. I don't even look at like a Feedly anymore. I just come into my tribes because they're kind of curated by who content I want to see and I want to share. So I strongly suggest creating your own tribe, but you can also find a tribe by coming into find a tribe and looking in there. You can search by keyword. So likely you'll find something that you want in there. Okay. So those are the best ways to be consistent and save time. People have told me that they have done a week's worth of pins in less than an hour at a time. So it's easy to get ahead. It's something you can, once you have your strategy written down and your boards the way you want them, it's an easy thing to hand over to a virtual assistant. Make sure they know what you want on each board, and then they can do it for you in a short amount of time. So I want to talk about growing an engaged following. And it's not a vanity thing at this point. It's not about the numbers, but they do matter. So your followers, like we mentioned, they see your pins first. Pinterest has done this for a while, but they've just gotten real explicit about it. They've also created the follower tab where you see all the people, pins from all the people and boards that you follow. So your pins go to the followers first, both in that follower tab and in the smart feed. Then if your followers react well to it by engaging with your content, Pinterest will then distribute it more widely. So again, it's not the number. So it might feel good to have a lot of Pinterest followers, but if they're not engaging with you, you really don't want them. Now, Pinterest is also increasing the places where they recommend people to follow. So you probably want to be there. And I asked how to do that. The answer is have a business profile, claim your website, and pin consistently. Now, we talked about pinning consistently, and that you have your links for how to do the other things. Now, at this time, it seems a little random what they recommend for me. We've got a lot of like wedding stuff and kids stuff, which is not applicable to me, but they are working on ways to figure out what a pinner is influential in, and then knowing what we are all interested in as pinners to suggest us to them. So that's why your strategy is super important. And yeah, you can mix in some personal boards, but think about it. And don't do what I did. So my account has been more of an experiment than anything else. I save the real work for people I work with. But what I did is I started out personal, then I went all business, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go personal and business. And I got a ton of new followers who really were loving my ketogenic diet recipes. They didn't care about my marketing things. So I said all those to secret because I really want to build a following who is engaging with the content that really matters to me. I still want to pin those other things, but I keep it secret because I don't want it to hurt my pins for my own content when they end up in the follower tab or smart feed, and my followers who want my low carb cheesecake recipe don't care about how to target promoted pins for some reason. So the way that you can grow an authentic following, the easiest way is to start with people who already love you, right? So you can add the Pinterest follow button. That's just a widget, and you can get to that from the link on this slide. You can add the widget that shows your pins. You could also feature a board in your emails that you send out. So let's say you're sending out an email based on a blog post you just wrote. You could say, check out other articles on this topic at this Pinterest board, right? So you could put in an image of your Pinterest board, like the Pinterest board widget, and link it, or just put in a text link, whatever works best for you. You can also remind your Pinterest or your Facebook followers that you're on Pinterest. What I've tried in the past is to share this week's most popular pin, right? And say, if you want more like this, follow me on Pinterest. Here's the board, or here's the profile. You could do something similar on Instagram, sharing your most popular pin from your website in a story or in a post. So how are we going to create these pins that drive traffic and engagement? Pinterest has given new guidelines on the optimal size for your pin. They've always kind of said a 2:3 ratio is good. I think a lot of people were confused by the ratio, so they gave exact numbers of 600 by 900, but the point is that's the ratio you want. You don't want it short, you don't want it way too tall. So they are going to start holding back your distribution in the newsfeed if your ratio is way too far outside of that. Square pins can work fine as well, but the 2:3 tends to perform the best. As far as the content on your pins goes, you're going to want them to be beautiful, if at all possible. I have seen some ugly pins do really well because they were useful, they were actionable, and even inspiring. So for a product pin, a lot of times you don't need more than just a lifestyle setting. Right? It's pretty obvious what this is about. But if you are writing about an idea or a service, or if it's just not obvious, like what would this starburst thing look like without the context, right? So think about it as providing context. This is also helpful here about 8 tips for distressing furniture. What you want to do is create a pin that gives people something new to try, to learn, or do, or buy. If you are selling products, if you're selling anything, you need to have professional looking photos. So these are both professional, but this one over here is a lifestyle photo showing your product in a real life setting. It makes it easy for people to imagine using it. And these convert to sales much better than just a straight product shot. Want to steer clear of images that are just very busy. This one over here has a lot of nice white space, very bold text. It's clear what it is, has some subtle branding. It's great. This one's just kind of a mess. So you also want to steer clear of anything that looks like an ad. This one here even uses kind of a scare tactic. It does not work on Pinterest. Instead, over here, we've presented a problem or a challenge. Your blog isn't growing and how you can fix it. Right? So a little inspiration here, you can do it, a little encouragement, 30 reasons. So we can assume that there are going to be action items for all of those. Little branding here, tons of white space, but it's still really pretty. Very clear and easy to read text. We're also going to create and test more than one image. So this is an actual test that a friend of mine did, and she found that the one on the right converted much higher as a promoted pin, so we can assume it would also do really well as an organic pin. Now, this one over here may have a little too much branding, right? We've got the logo here, plus here and here. This one over here, she didn't use it up here. Also, the text is easier to read, and the benefit is more clear. Say hello to Flo. What does that even mean? Evidently, other people didn't know either. And this text here would be hard to read on mobile because it would be quite small. This was the clear winner. And she also went on to use those keywords in the description and in her targeting. There's absolutely nothing wrong with creating more than one image. For an article or product, you should, in fact. This pin here, I just love. It's beautiful. Has some subtle branding, has plenty of white space, professional photography, very clear, multiple items to appeal to more than one person or one set of people. A strong call to action, start your registry today, helpful text on the image. This text here, I suspect, is way too small to read on mobile, but other than that, it's beautiful. Oops. Okay, so tools, where to get images. Everybody wants to know that. If you are selling a product that you get from a manufacturer, you can get images from them oftentimes. You're likely going to want to remix those, so you can make a collage out of multiple images. You could try you could crop an image and use like a real close-up on an item or just an aspect of the item to make it a little bit different from everything else that's going to be out there. You can also get stock images for free from Unsplash, Pexels, and other places, or you can purchase images from Deposit Photos and other places. Of course, you're never ever going to take somebody else's image and link it to your website. And to remix images, you can use some free tools like Adobe Spark and Canva, which are both very easy to use, or you can get a little fancy with Photoshop. Another thing you can do is to hire a designer to develop some templates for you that you can just swap out the image and text. So we need to think about our descriptions because, again, those descriptions give context to your pins. Excuse me. Your descriptions need to have keywords, but they shouldn't be stuffed with keywords. They should be written in conversational style. Tell people what they're going to get when they click on the pin. They also do need to have a strong call to action like shop, make, find, or buy, because that will prompt people to, once they get to your website from the pin, to make that next step. So they're going to convert a lot better. We can also upload video pins. The way to do that is just going to Pinterest and you hit the plus button, and then you can upload a video just like you would an image. It will give you these same specifications there when you go to upload your image. So the way you might want to use an image, think about a short one for branding, a long one for DIY, like to show a person how to do something, and try them out. I definitely think they're worth a try. Now, we all want to get found in search, right? We want to get some of that 2 billion searches that are happening. So how do we do that? Pin your own fresh content right away. So if your blog post comes out, pin it. Pin it to the most relevant board first. The reason for pinning it to your most relevant board first is that as that pin travels around Pinterest, as you freshly repin it from your site to more boards, it pulls with it the data from that first board it was pinned to. So Pinterest knows all the pins that go to one URL. That data is combined. So just keep in mind that the first pin, make a good impression by pinning it to a very relevant board. So it's probably not going to be your blog board. It's probably going to be your second grade math tips board or something like that. We need to stop repinning our own content. So we know that repins are assigned to Pinterest that our content is engaging. However, Pinterest also knows when we're repinning our own content and it doesn't count. So freshly pin your own content. What that means is don't go to Pinterest and hit save and just save it. Rather, go to your blog and save it fresh from there, or go to Tailwind Pin Inspector, schedule a pin. It even says schedule a repin, but everything that goes through Tailwind is a fresh pin. That's a rule from Pinterest that we follow. It has to be a fresh pin. And then the other thing you can do is you can, if you see it on Pinterest, you can hit that save button, but then use that little Tailwind extension that will show up to save a fresh version of your own content. Go ahead, repin other people's content. You do want other people to repin your content to show that it's engaging. You also want them to pin fresh from your site. You want it all. So again, pin to multiple boards, but pin to the most relevant one first. That's the one that's going to get distribution priority, and you want to make sure it has the most context with it. So a board title that matches, a board description that matches. So an example here might be that you have the second grade math printable. The order in which you pin might be second grade math projects first, right? Because that's a good relevant match. And then it can go to these other things that makes sense. You wouldn't want to pin it to recess ideas. Isn't that relevant? It can hurt the distribution of your pin. Again, create more than one pin per post to appeal to a wider variety of pinners and to give your content the most exposure possible. Pinterest loves that fresh content. So what they consider fresh is either, like we said about pinning your content fresh, right? So anything other than a repin or a save right directly in Pinterest, but it also is a new image for an old post, right? Or the best and most fresh, or the freshest pin is a new pin, a new image for a new blog post. They love that the most. When you are pinning again, use a different description whenever possible. Using the same description is not going to hurt you, but it doesn't really help either. What you want to do is to target different keywords in your descriptions. So you see in this first example, I've targeted like second grade math worksheets and also complex addition and easily. Over here, I've targeted elementary math ideas, adding larger numbers, fun. Right? So it's a completely different angle for the same product and they both make sense, but they would probably appeal to different people and they're definitely going to show up in different searches. Use hashtags on Pinterest. You can use up to 20, but you'll probably find that you don't need that many. Hashtags will help you get found in search. So people do search hashtag math resources in the search bar. But the other thing they do is they'll see in their smart feed or other in search results, they'll see pins with hashtags in that description and click through on those to get more ideas. So give them a try and it helps your newer content get found first, right? Because hashtag search only pull up the newer hashtags. Again, let's be consistent. We're going to do that with Tailwind. Definitely use a scheduler. Here, this YouTube channel, confirmation that it does not hurt you to use one. Stop deleting pins. So the idea behind deleting pins is that if you have pins that aren't performing, right, so they're not being repinned or clicked, and then you delete them, that's going to make the overall engagement rate of your whole account better. Will make all your pins show up higher. Not true. Each pin stands on its own. So if you have a dead pin that's not getting distribution because it didn't get engagement, it does not mean that your other pins will suffer for it. So rather than spending time deleting pins, just create new content. That's what Pinterest really wants from us. Now, there's a very valid concern. What about if you have a pin that goes to a product you no longer have? Rather than deleting pins, because remember, you can delete your own version of that pin, but every other repin of that pin out there is still going to be out there. So rather than just deleting your pin and letting people get to a 404 page from other pins, instead you either want to redirect the page for that URL or you want to edit that page. So let's say it's a math worksheet you no longer have. You could go into that page for that product and say, sorry, we don't have this anymore, but you might enjoy this instead. Link to that, or just directly redirect it. Just no more deleting pins. We do need to know what is working with analytics. So let's look at which pins are driving saves and clicks, right? You're probably going to use something like Google goal conversions or e-commerce reporting to figure out sales, but we're going to look at just saves and clicks. What content from other pinners is working with your audience, and also insights that are going to help you improve your content planning and Pinterest management. So just briefly in Google Analytics, you probably do this for your other networks, but you're going to go to acquisition, network referrals, and Pinterest, and hopefully you'll see your activity occurring increasing over time. People will sometimes look at their analytics either in Pinterest or Google, see a drop, and get really concerned about it. There are noticeable seasonal ups and downs for Pinterest that you may not be used to for other networks. It's perfectly normal. It happens to everybody. So rather than becoming concerned over a trend that you see for a couple days or a couple weeks, check the same time period last month and see where you are. Once you get into network referrals and you click on that Pinterest, you're going to look and see what what content is driving your clicks from Pinterest? Can you create more content like that? Can you create more images that lead to that content? Because obviously something about it people really like. Okay, so we have a really in-depth article on how to do this on our website, but you can get it at bit.ly pin TW Analytics. So let's go to Pinterest Analytics first. Things not cooperating with me. Okay, so again, this looks a little bit familiar to you. Starting from here, we're going to go to your Pinterest profile more, and we're going to look at clicks. And by default, it's 2 weeks, but we are going to look at 30 days. It's a more accurate look for us. So we want to look at the most clicked pins from the last 30 days. And what I'm looking for is there anything here that's really working for my audience that isn't mine, like most of these, that I should be writing about? So this one worked for people for some reason. How to get verified on Pinterest, that would be something I could write about. Warm up your audience, Pinterest SEO. This one consistently shows up here on the screen, so I should probably be writing about that. The other thing to look at is to click on that individual pin and see, maybe is it the topic? I suspect this one's the topic, but also the design. So if it will pull up here, we'll be able to see what it looks like. Here we go. Big, bold, clear print. Pinterest SEO in 2018, how to optimize your pins for the changes. SEO, they've done good SEO on this SEO post. So that might be something I want to write about, but I have to make sure I use good SEO myself. This one here, how to get verified on Pinterest. I want to look and see what is it about that I think is doing well. It's pretty, right? And it's also good bold text, easy to read, plenty of white space, a little bit of branding. Pinterest for Business getting started. Right, okay. So is it worth making a blog post on this topic for me? Maybe. I love to use Pinterest Analytics to help me with my content planning. It tends to make your Pinterest marketing explode. So take a look at these and see what it is about the pin that you think is working for people. If you can find a common thread, then you can create content like it. Let's then look at all time, because these are your pins that have done the best forever. Best in search, you can use that to learn a lot about how to make your pins do better in search. You're hoping to find yours in here. But no matter what you do, this process, and if you can do this monthly, it's going to help you become a better pinner over time as you start to kind of refine your processes as well. Power pins, pins with a high mix of saves, clicks, and more. I want to create more like these. Okay, there's a lot you can learn from these. Then I want to go to Analytics, People You Reach, and look at all audiences as we see it, and then look at my impressions for the last 30 days. Okay, so I'm at 202 1,000 monthly average users. Okay, and like I said though, the best way to do it is to compare a similar period from last year. So I'm going to look at April to May. Okay, so I can see that I've gone way up over the past year. That makes me very happy. And then going back here, see what you can learn about the people viewing your pins. It may be different from your regular content audience, and you may find things in here that help you kind of refine what you're doing on Pinterest. So if in general, I know that my other audiences are in different areas, maybe they're more rural, I might want to start using language and images that would appeal to a different audience. I know my audience on Pinterest is much more highly skewed towards female. So you can take the same content that you promote on Facebook or Instagram and just tweak it a little bit for it to work on Instagram. But it's just kind of cool the way you can see what people are into. And then again, you can find out interests, you can find out boards, the interest there, because these are going to change over time, right? You might start to see different competitors you should check out every month. So that's worth a look. All right, then probably the most important place to look is your website analytics on Pinterest. And again, we're really interested in clicks. Yes, I know, mine are pretty low. So I'm gonna look at clicks, my most clicked pins, my boards with the most clicked pins. Does that change over time? Is something that I'm creating working really well? Can I build off that? Should I create another image? This is interesting here. You might find that your infographics do really well as far as impressions and saves or repins, but they don't get a lot of clicks. This infographic of mine is actually kind of an exception because it gets a lot of clicks. And I think part of it is because I've given kind of a teaser here. So people do click to find out more, which is cool. Okay, now we're going to go back to Tailwind. And we're going to start out on just taking a minute to load everything. Profile performance under Insights. All right, so you can easily see how many followers you have. If they're growing, you always like to see those go up. If they go down a little bit, it's just Pinterest cleaning house. If you have an annual plan, you can look at the last 30 days, so you see a little bit broader of a range. You can see what your activity looks like. So if you have someone managing your account, you'll be able to see how many pins are going out. You'll be able to see how many repins are happening on those pins. And then we can look at the overall health of our pins. So I'm getting 1.6 repins for every pin. That's pretty good for me. Again, it's going to be very different for you. Same thing with engagement score, like we saw on Board Insights. That's repins per pin divided by the number of your followers. So again, because of my weird non-strategy strategy, I don't have that great of an engagement score. But I'm hoping that with pinning consistently, pinning true to me and what I'm about on Pinterest, over time that is going to go up. In fact, I asked Sarah, should I just start over? Sarah, that is head of product marketing at Tailwind, she said no. Over time, that will start to come up. I'm okay with that. And then my engagement rate is, well, 42% of my pins are getting at least one repin. So it means that the other 42% of my pins are getting more than one, which is cool. You always want to see these numbers going up, 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 but compared only to yourself. So again, under Board Insights, we're going to look at what's still working for us. Is there something that all of a sudden is getting a better virality score? So should we spend more time on it? Looks like people are actively pinning to this group board. That's nice. Getting a lot of repins. So maybe I should start pinning to that one some more. Just ways to kind of refine your process. If I want to get more deeply into the pins on that board and see how they're doing, I can click to analyze my pins here, and this is going to pull up Pin Insights or I think it's Post Inspector or Pin Inspector. Here it is. Come on, pull it up, pull it up. Okay. All right, so you can sort by date pinned. Here you can see it's only for this board. This pin is done well, so right from here I could add it to tribes if it hasn't already been added. This will tell me that somebody else has already added it. This is for Instagram, so is there anywhere else I can put it? Yeah, I can put it in there. Right, or I can schedule a repin. Remember, anytime you schedule from Pinterest, it is not a true repin. it is actually a fresh pin. So what would be smart to do here to give myself an extra SEO boost or give this pin an SEO boost would be to change the description. So it will help. Okay. The other thing you're going to want to look at is organic activity. I always like to see the latest pins from my site. Now, of course, we can now see that in our Pinterest profile. Okay. All right, so I can see that in activity. But from here, I can easily schedule that fresh pin if I want to. I can go and look at it. I can go to the article itself, and it's just helpful to see what is getting some activity this month. Gives you a hint about what content is working, especially if you're in an industry with seasonal upticks. You might start to see something trending before you were expecting it. So that will tell you it's time to get more content out there like that. Okay. So just some information as you're considering how you want to do your Pinterest marketing and how you want to stay consistent. And of course, we're encouraging you to use Tailwind because that is going to help you to do that in a way that doesn't take up all your time. So just something good to know is how using Tailwind impacts people's results. Right, so there's a lot that goes into this. So maybe people who upgraded are more committed or whatever, but for whatever reason, the people who upgraded to a plus plan got 3.7 times more followers added than those who never upgraded, who just did the free trial. They were much more consistent, right? So they pinned more, 4.2 times more, which makes sense, right? If you have that scheduler, the unlimited pinning on the annual plan, you're going to pin more consistently and more. And also, they're getting more engagement. So 6.9 times more engagement. So if you think about what that could mean for your own content, that means more engagement from your followers, which means more distribution for your pins. So this all is under the Tailwind Plus plan, which is $119 a year, or you can do the monthly plan at $15 a month. With the annual plan, you get unlimited scheduling, 30 days of reporting like we saw, and also access to tribes where you can join 5 tribes and submit into the tribes 30 pieces of content or 30 submissions. So we do have a special offer since you made it all the way through to the end of this webinar. We thank you for being here. It expires tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Central Time, and it's only for new members. What you're going to need to do is start that free trial, upgrade, and then go to the link that we're going to share in the chat. We will also send you I didn't even tell you what the special offer is. The special offer is that you get $30 off. So that's either $30 off your $119 annual plan or basically 2 months free if you choose to go the monthly plan. So sign up for a free trial and then click on our special link, which we will give you in the chat. And I'm sorry it's a little convoluted, but that's the way it goes. And we thank you so much for being here and look forward to taking your questions.